Hey everybody, welcome back. We're a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, which is not a bad thing because we have a ton of questions. So what we'll likely do is just extend the 10 minutes of Q&A a little longer. But now we're going to continue with our program, and this next presentation is all about making a list and checking it twice, travel research, planning, and validation. Again, I'm Darlene Rondo, and I'm Vice President Best Practices for Leonardo's Online Merchandising Group, and I'm your host for today's summit for those of you who have just joined us. A reminder, you can submit your questions in the questions dialog box in the GoToMeeting panel, and we're going to address them at the end of this next session. In this presentation, I'm joined by Ellis Conley from TrustYou and Charlie Osman from TripTease to talk about what is perhaps the most complicated part of the travel shopping journey: research, planning, and validation. This is called the mid-funnel, and it involves travel shoppers looking at multiple websites and sources for information as they try and make their travel plans and narrow down their decisions. When someone enters the research and planning phase, they have chosen a destination, and now they're looking for the right dates, flights, places to stay, and all the stuff they do while they're at the destination. And they're looking for accommodations, and so now is the great time to help them find your property. According to a Google study, 20% of leisure travelers are totally undecided about what brand to stay with during this mid-funnel phase, and 65% are considering multiple brands and properties. Only 16% are absolutely certain about which brand or property that they're going to book with. So it's really your chance to influence and persuade them. There's a lot of conflicting information out there about how many websites someone actually visits. Some say 20, 38, some say it's more like 10. A joint study by Skift and BoxEver suggests that it's even less, with 40% of people browsing just 3 to 5 sites before completing their purchase. Of course, one of the sites could be an OTA, which allows someone to compare multiple options in one place. And as you can see from this chart, which we looked at in our first presentation, OTAs dominate the mid-funnel phase. So the question is, what can you do during this phase to influence travel shoppers and ensure that they don't wind up booking on an OTA? And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ellis, and Ellis is going to take it from here and talk to us about how to excel during this phase. Ellis?
Hi, well, thank you, Darlene, very much. It's a pleasure to be here and be speaking with everyone. So welcome from across the world. Thank you also for acknowledging that the mid-funnel is the most challenging and possibly complex piece of the travel journey. So what I'll try to do is simplify that by telling a story about tomato soup. About 4 or 5 years ago, it was about 4.5 years ago, my wife was pregnant at the time with our son. She had sent me to the grocery store to pick up tomato soup. Now, my wife had never eaten or had tomato soup since we had been together or married. And I asked her what did she want, and she said, well, just tomato soup. Just pick me up a tomato soup. I said, okay, fantastic. So I go to the store. I walk into the aisle of soup, and if anyone has been to a store recently, you probably understand where I'm getting at, is there was hundreds and hundreds of options that I had the ability to choose from. And once I knew my location, tomato soup, I was able to adjust my search to the section of soups where the tomato soup was located. Well, what did I find out is that within the tomato soup section, there's also 50 or 60 different tomato soups. Now, being from California, I had a higher level of differentiation because organic, gluten-free, dairy-free, non-toxic, non-GMO. I think you guys understand the point I'm getting at. So many different options for me to be able to choose from. So as I go through my journey of collecting this soup for my wife, who's pregnant at the time with my son, I know that there will be consequences if I come back and she does not enjoy the soup. So as it happens, I'm looking at a single can of soup and a person walks by behind the aisle, because it's a crowded supermarket, and says, hey, that's a great suit. I've had that before. Validating what I had just picked up, moved it into my shopping cart, and purchased it and brought it home. Now, I won't tell you whether or not if my wife enjoyed the suit, but let's assume that she did, and everything went on greatly, and my purchase was validated, and now we continue to eat that soup every Thursday. Now,
love that analogy.
Thank you, Darlene. The reason I make that analogy is because the travel shopping journey is so complex. And when you talk about the leisure traveler, as Darlene was mentioning on the intro here, you know, when a leisure traveler is spending money on a hotel or on a vacation for that matter, that is a very important purchase for them. You know, most folks, according to multiple studies, are doing anywhere between 1 to 3 vacations per year. And a lot of the times this is a major purchase. So the validation phase or the confidence phase of what I've just purchased is a big part of ensuring that you're moving people from this searching and validation phase into that shopping cart and into that booking portion of the travel journey. So where does a lot of this validation and searching for content of validation begin? And we know that a lot of travel searches start within the Google ecosystem. So here on the screen you can see some very specific points of how Google and other folks that are participating in Google organic search or paid are actually showcasing ways to validate what other travelers have said about that property or about that destination and help build confidence from the minute you start interacting with a property throughout the entire journey. Now, we know as an industry that reviews make up a good part of the decision-making process. Reviews, whether it be on an OTA, reviews whether it be on a meta search site, or reviews, more importantly, as it is within the own ecosystem of your website. When you talk about validation and building confidence through the traveler journey, you want to make sure that the information that is being distributed to Google and the kayaks and the hotels.coms of the world is in line with what you're presenting within your own website. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more further in the presentation. But the last thing that hotels and accommodations want to have happen is you have amazing reviews on your website, meaning 5-star out of 5 testimonials and all this great stuff, and then all of a sudden during the research and validation phase they're looking at an OTA or Google or another review site, and that 5 out of 5 star dramatically decreases to a 3 out of 5, and now you've essentially just lost that traveler and didn't get the opportunity to establish expectations prior to them getting to your property. Now, in a day and age where this piece of equipment is the most used computer in everyone's pocket, real estate and time and space is limited. So travelers these days, where they're researching on this device, they want to have summarized content that they can look at along with images in order to make a booking decision. So if I'm on a mobile device or travelers are on a mobile device, and at TrustYou we've done studies around what moves the needle in regards to moving people through the booking funnel. And yes, people want to read full text reviews, right? So, and you know, on TripAdvisor and some of the other sites, people are writing paragraphs and soliloquies and haikus, and there's a lot of different pieces in there that people enjoy reading. But on a mobile device, summarized content is a lot of the way that people are moving to want to digest and be able to get quick validations about their intent or their purchase decisions. Now, more importantly for a hotelier here is that people are willing to pay more dollars or euros or Japanese yen or whatever it may be for a hotel that has a better review. Obviously, this makes complete sense, but are you as a hotelier, and I ask you this question, are you displaying review content, and more importantly, transparent review content, within the ecosystem of your website to help validate and drive conversions within your booking funnel. Now, brand consistency across the entire online booking experience is what I was just mentioning. Imagine when someone begins searching on Google, and then we'll just take an average of 10 websites. As Darlene was mentioning before, it's anywhere from 5 to, we'll call it 500, right? You want to make sure that within each of those different websites, or with each of those different channels that people are looking at your property, that there are similarities, and that there are brand standards that you're creating across that entire experience. Now, if you are segmenting and doing pragmatic advertising like our good friends at Sojourn, and you're able to identify a leisure traveler versus a business traveler, and maybe the content you're presenting there is a little bit different, great. You're doing an awesome job, and you're putting in the legwork to make sure that that gets done. But in regards to review content and ratings and scores, I would challenge hoteliers to take a look at yourhotel.com or yourbrand.com site. I would take a look at your distribution channels and where you see the most revenue coming in from. And I would make sure that if your review content within those ecosystems are different from what you're displaying on your website, or are different from what you're displaying on other OTAs, you should consider investing time and energy in making sure you bring those up to par. Now, how do you get those aligned, or how do you get those more linear, is distributing content within those ecosystems and asking those travelers to write reviews across those distribution channels that have come in. Now, that may conflict with your customer acquisition strategy in regards to moving OTA bookers into direct bookers or loyalty members. But at the end of the day, we all know customer acquisition is quite expensive. And if people are booking through an OTA, and that's a channel that you're investing advertising dollars or are paying commissions against, you want to make sure that your property is represented well across the entire network of where your distributed inventory is. Now, Google has made changes recently within their environment as it relates to displaying review content and review summary information. This is a slight feather in our cap here at TrustYou. Google and TrustYou are partners. They leverage our API in regards to review content. And hoteliers need to begin or keep paying attention to the Google ecosystem. I think we always hear of Google, are they going to combat with the OTAs? Are they going to move more into a direct booking channel? And they seem to do whatever they want to do quietly and successfully and keep moving the needle in which way they see fit. As we know, over 75% of most travel searches are starting within the Google search, so it makes really good sense for hoteliers to leverage some of the tools that Google has put in place recently to help increase that review content and those scores, which is through the Google Review Collection widget, which is available by TrustYou and other survey and guest satisfaction survey partners out there in the industry.
Hey, Ellis, Christine from the audience has a question related to something you were just talking about. You mentioned transparent reviews. Can you explain a little more what you mean by that and how that speaks to transparency and branding?
Yeah, Christine, great question. And I always think back to an article that Arne Sorensen wrote from Marriott, and this was probably about 6 or 7 months ago, about how the industry needed to become a bit more transparent and be more accountable to travelers. A prime example of what hoteliers have done in the past is only showcasing the best comments or the best review ratings that they've received within their own websites. So when I talk about being transparent, it's if you're collecting feedback on your hotel through a guest satisfaction survey or a post-stay survey product, being transparent means putting all of that information out within your website so that travelers are able to see it. Now, some hoteliers may come back and say, you know, that's not a good idea. We may be missing the mark on a few things. Other hoteliers who are averaging, you know, 4 or 5 stars, that's going to be an easy choice to make. Transparency does a few different things than just help build confidence and validate travel purchases. It also sets expectations for travelers when they get to the hotel. So if you have 5 out of 5 star, 5 out of 5 star, and that's all the traveler sees, and they arrive at the property and receive a 3-star experience, you better believe that they're going to write a review and make sure you're aware of that 3-star experience instead of what you had, you know, given them the expectation of. So when I speak about transparency, it's just having all that information out there because travelers are going to find it anyway.
Exactly.
Great question, Christine. You know, I think this kind of leads me to another part of, you know, what I wanted to talk about, which is, you know, as hoteliers, a lot of times you are sitting on the largest database of content with all of this post-stay survey feedback that you guys are collecting that may not be visible to guests. Now, there's content in there, not just that can be used for operational insight and driving confidence and purchase intent, but it could also be used for SEO value. So, you know, putting free-form text into your web environment is helping drive SEO. It's unique, rich, and fresh content that's being pushed in every day. So there's a lot more uses for guest feedback than just driving operational changes and direction, which has a lot more to do with the marketing side. And you see a lot of the big brands these days putting all of their reviews out there on their website. You know, and I look forward to seeing and looking at the kind of independent and kind of the small chain and brand space to move in that direction as well. And I think inevitably, you know, that has to happen because everyone's finding that data and that content out there everywhere.
Alice, just a time check. You have tons of valuable information that we're moving through, and judging by the questions coming from the audience as you're talking, it's really resonating with them. So we have a couple of minutes left, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll end here. You know, there are 3 main things that really drive a purchase of a hotel room. And talking about validation, you know, Darlene mentioned this at the beginning of this. There is the location where we know we're going, and then there's the price, which, like it or not, that's a big driver. So that's why we're looking at comp sets. That's why we're looking at history. That's why revenue management systems are so popular in creating strategy and things of that nature. The thing that really can help influence the price is reviews. You know, no one these days is making a booking without reading a review, because what they need and what they want is the validation that their purchase is good and that they're going to have a good time staying at that property. So that's my time, Darlene. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just one quick question, because I think it's a really important question, and that is, how does a hotel manage, I'll call them phony reviews or illegitimate reviews? Any guidance on that?
Yeah, so, you know, the guidance first and foremost is really to make sure that you are monitoring and paying attention to everything that's being said about your hotel, whether that be through a product like Trust You or some of our competitors out there. But the first piece is, let's make sure that we're listening and understanding what everyone is saying. Now, the second piece, as far as removing illegitimate reviews or trying to discredit them, that really is a channel-by-channel process. So removing a review or dealing with a review on Google versus TripAdvisor versus Kayak versus, we would name another 15 OTAs, are all going to have complete different processes and different timelines in regards to getting that action taken care of. What I can tell you is that the majority of folks in the review space that we work with are quite receptive to understanding and acknowledging, what is illegitimate or fake, and are pretty quick and swift about making sure that the hotelier is taken care of in that regard.
Thank you. That was a question from Lena in our audience, and I think that probably helped set that to rest. So thank you very much, Ellis. And now, Charlie, over to you. And Charlie is going to talk to us and keep the conversation going about this really important phase of the journey. So, Charlie, welcome.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me, and welcome. So Darlene already touched on a key point for me, which is there are two parts to address when you're thinking about the research phase. First of all, you've got guests who are still trying to make a decision. Do they want to come to your part of the world? Do they want to come and stay at your property? And the second key element, I think, of the research phase is using it as an opportunity to tee up the second decision people will be making. Because once they've decided where they want to go and stay, they then will be deciding how they want to book that property. And testing the clicker here, wait for that to happen. I'll try again. Oh, there we go. When I think about the research, and back one. When I think about the research phase, I'm thinking, well, how can we also use this as a key way to drive direct bookings? And I'm rather obsessed, I have to admit, about direct bookings. There's some research out earlier this year has shown that you can obviously increase your net RevPAR hugely, partly because you're paying less in commissions, but partly because if you're getting someone to book directly, you can then upsell, you can add on ancillaries, and you start a much better, healthier direct relationship with the guest. So with that in mind, I often think, and I was going to cover really, how can you use this research phase as an opportunity to make sure that once people have decided to book with you, they're going to decide to book direct. And the reason why this research phase is a unique opportunity to do that is because the vast majority of OTA bookers, or the majority, vast is maybe exaggerating it, the majority of OTA bookers, over 60%, are going to the hotel website before they go and book on the OTA. So an Expedia booker is coming to your hotel website, and they're usually doing that because they want to see bigger pictures and they want more information. They want to just reassure themselves that they're making the right decision. And that's the moment you've got. And you've got to make sure that you either prevent them from disappearing and going away, or that you've given them also messaging about why, when they decide to book, they should come back and do it directly. So I've got 6 tips for you, I think 12 minutes left or so, and I will whiz through those on specific things you should be thinking about with all that in mind. The first one, so at Triptease, we spend our life thinking about how to make hotel websites convert better. And a key part of what we do, every time we come up with new ideas or we're thinking about evolutions of what we do, our starting point is always to build something, mock it up, and go down to Starbucks with an iPad and say to people, please can you step through this website and talk to me while you do so. It's so easy. I think, think about the last time you redid your website. It's so easy in the middle of that process, which always feels like it takes longer than you would like, to get to the end and just go, right, website's done, I'm off, I'm going to go and think about something else I need to do in marketing. And to make assumptions that people are using and understanding and reading the website in the way that you did when you put it together. And what I recommend you do, 2 things you could do today. One is you could go down to your lobby in your hotel and you could just ask 2 or 3 people. I don't know if your guests are 18-year-olds or if they're 80-year-olds, but if you get your guests to just try and book your website in front of you, give them a credit card, say, please can you book a room for the 14th of November, and get them to talk to you while they do it. You'll be amazed at how quickly you see some of the things that are catching people out that you don't even perceive. Another great way to do this is using sites like Fiverr and Upwork, where you can hire people literally for a $5. You can give them a bit of a great bit of recording equipment. So OpenTest is a great free bit of software. So they can do this at home, and you can hire 5 people tomorrow for $5. Get them to record their experience going through your website, talk through it as they do it, and you will learn great things about how you need to improve the site and what you can do to increase conversion. So that's my first tip. Go and experience the customer journey yourself. The next one is presenting clear benefits. So these are just a couple of screenshots I've taken from hotel websites. 3 of them have got big lists of benefits, reasons why to book direct. If you decide you want to book in a core hotel, here are the reasons why you should come back and do it directly. And I also, you'll see there a picture of a pineapple. This is one of, I think, the more creative ways that I've seen hotels recently try to get across the point that the hotelier prefers people who book direct. They offer a free pineapple in your room for anyone who books direct. It's a slightly quirky one. I quite like the fact that it's quirky because the bigger impact is not that people who love pineapples book direct. I think the bigger impact is that all guests realize and recognize, well, the hotel really wants me to do it this way, so maybe I will. And another experience, one I've seen recently was a hotel saying, your first diving lesson will be free. And obviously they use that actually as an upsell to get you to then take further diving lessons. But clear to the guest about what's in it for them. So presenting clear benefits. Number 3, here we go, is prove your rate is the best. So actually this is something that we do at Trip. Oh, no, we've gone one too far. So this is here, you can see on the Holiday Inn Express website, when you do a rate search, you see it's $200 direct. A widget, a little price comparison widget pops out and says, the direct price is $200. It turns out the price on Expedia, Booking.com is also $200. And the reason why this is really effective in getting people to make that booking directly is that the #1 reason why someone comes to your website during the research phase, they look, they see the extra photos, and they leave, and they go and book elsewhere, the #1 reason is because they think it's cheaper on Expedia. And we know it isn't most of the time, right? Most of the time you're in parity, and just proving that drives direct bookings. And this can be, I guess, for independents, anything from like 20 to 30% increase in bookings, just to give you a sense. Number 4, don't be undercut. It's interesting, we find that hotels are being undercut online a lot more than they think. We often speak to hoteliers who say, oh, we think that we're in parity and most of the time the OTAs are charging the same as us. And we find that 20, 30% of the time, there are OTAs out there undercutting them. Now, this wasn't a problem 10 years ago, but now that we have meta search and people are using that, whether it's on TripAdvisor or on Google, we've moved from this age of sort of deference and belief in a best price guarantee to an age of reference. I'm just going to go and check it out. And what we're seeing is that if you are being undercut by an OTA somewhere else on the web, then your conversion rate on your website goes down by 1/3 almost. So it can have a really big impact if you're not monitoring and measuring your rates.
So
Okay,
Charlie, Liz from the audience, and this is a conundrum for so many people, right? How do you prove to the consumer that your rate is actually the best rate?
Oh, well, okay, I tried, maybe I went too quickly. I tried to address exactly that. So Price Check, which is this price comparison widget that here you see on the Holiday Inn Express site, that shows, here's the price direct, and right now here are the live prices on other OTAs. So it's actually, so TripT's power this one on IHG, and it shows a price comparison. So that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, Liz said that helped clarify that there was a widget that's actually integrated into the website that is showing those OTA prices at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, whizzing too fast. I will slow down and.
It's the accent, Charlie.
Okay, putting people off. So we talked about undercutting. Last 2 top tips. So 98% of people come to your website and leave, and something we've seen happen with really good effect around the rest of the web, whether you're buying shoes or a new bed, are abandonment pop-ups, abandonment messages. So there are many tools out there on the market that track if a user is about to leave your website, they notice that there's an intent to exit, and they pop a message. And so again, something we do, which is looking at, well, what's the behavior of that guest? What's the message that's going to get that guest to book direct? And so there are a whole bunch of vendors out there that you can find where there are exit intent abandonment messages. And again, to give you a sense, what we see generally is this can increase conversion for hotel by about 10%. It's kind of the impact of that one. Just trying to throw numbers out there, because I realize today you're getting 50 ideas of things you could do, and so prioritizing them and deciding which ones are likely to work for you could be a challenge.
Yeah.
So the last one, and this one I have no numbers for because it's kind of new, but I thought I would just tease you with what we think comes next for hotels, what we think is going to be the next really key initiative that will, we think, sweep across the industry, that improves the research journey and that also makes sure that people want to book direct. And that is, I guess, at simplest, is thought of as live chat. Again, it's something we've seen growing in importance across the web. The massive shift in the way that people use mobile phones over the last 3 years is phenomenal. You know, social media used to be the #1 on mobile phones. Now messaging is. It's just completely taken over. People spend more time messaging on their phones than they do speaking of them, and that's for sure. And so we know that this is a user experience that people are now used to and that they like. And if you look at companies that kind of countries that are leading mobile experiences, China being the main one, you see that this conversational commerce, the messaging, the live chat feature is just way, way advanced to where we are today. So what we're expecting to see is hotels doing a lot more to power and to manage conversations on their website. And we think that there are opportunities to actually make it, because there are generic live chat that you see out in the, if you're going to buy a pair of shoes, but to have content, to deliver content, like, for example, a photo of the bedroom, into a live chat conversation, we think is going to be a real opportunity, one, to improve the guest experience when they're on your website, especially if they're on a mobile website, and two, build a relationship with them, a human relationship that, in a sense, third-party OTAs, for example, would find hard to replicate. So this is, it's new, we're beginning to see live chat appear on hotel sites, but we expect that this is going to be sort of the next big wave in the next few years. So watch this space. I think just about managed to finish perfectly on time. So there we go, 6 things to do. If I could do one thing today, I think it would be take a laptop down into your hotel lobby, find a guest and get them to walk you through how they experience your website, because it will blow your mind, some of the things they say that you didn't expect.
Thanks, Charlie. That was amazing. Amelia from the audience, it echoes that, particularly that last tip of sending someone a picture of the room or something that makes an emotional or a more personal connection with that consumer, right? And that's going to do a couple of things, right? It's going to reach them on a level that is going to stay in their mind throughout that shopping journey. And it also, I think, sets the stage for, hey, you know, you can communicate with us this way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you are the experts at Leonardo about. Certainly, I think there's an opportunity to be human, more human on websites, and I think that people's use of the web has become more human, and it will evolve that way. So I definitely think that engaging people in a conversation, being able to bring rich media to it, then just starts a relationship way before they ever walk in the front door.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Charlie, you cut out. It was so funny. You said, you at Leonardo are the experts at, and then you froze.
I will repeat it.
And you left me hanging like, okay, what is he going to say?
The experts at using content and visuals to convert people. That's your, or at least that's my perception of your secret sauce.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping us on time. We appreciate that. Again, tons of questions, mostly around rate parity, have come in. We probably have a dozen questions on rate parity. So we're going to get ready for the Q&A. And let's see, what time is it? In 3 minutes. So you know what, we'll maybe start a little bit early, and then we'll bring back all 4 presenters with us, Chris, Ed, Ellis, and Charlie. And so let's just take 30 seconds, and then we'll be back with you guys, and we'll tee up all these questions for you. Audience, please keep sending in those questions. There's no shortage of inquiries, so please keep sending them in, and we'll ask the speakers, aka the experts. So,
While we wait, can I tell you something? I think maybe it was. I have a feeling it was one of the other panelists who brought it to my attention. One of my favorite bits of content I saw on a hotel website recently, in fact it was last week, was swimming with the pigs. There's a hotel where it says, you know, book direct, get to swim with the pigs. I forget which part of the Bahamas.
Yeah, it's in the Bahamas, the Exumas.
Yeah, fabulous. That's great content.
swim with the pigs?
It just Google swimming with pigs, and the videos are amazing.
I didn't know pigs could swim.
Oh, they
Or-
can.
Okay.
I guess. All
They're
right.
not going to win any world records, but I think it looks like fun.
I don't know. They were looking pretty fast if you saw the video with the guys who had salad in their hands and were feeding the pigs. Those pigs were moving.
Yeah. Or maybe if someone is chasing them, like Ellis might do with a big knife or something.
I think
Because
they'll
of-
be very upset in the Bahamas.
Because Ellis puts off that vibe with his beard,
Yeah, well-
or because of the culinary education?
No, the whole CIA thing.
Not the
The whole CIA thing.
it's attacking pigs. Like, just to clarify.
Ellis Conley, you're kosher.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that.
I know. Okay, here's our first question because it's time to get away from that topic. So, Chris, this is from Lori. How can vacation rental companies identify and target their guests? Because we have a bunch of those folks on the line with us today. Oh, you're muted, so sorry, Chris. We're going to unmute you, and then you can start again. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I thought that was purposeful, but that's fine. Well, Lori, so I think that frankly, the strategies you deploy as a vacation rental company to reach people that are interested in traveling to destinations where you serve those customers with those properties is not too different from how you would do it as a hotelier or as anybody else. And so I think the challenge and the trick is making sure you identify the right type of person. And I think it might have been Ed that was talking earlier about, is this a leisure type of traveler? Is it a business type of traveler? In your case, is this the type of traveler who is looking for, potentially an extended stay? They have a larger group that they're traveling with. So understanding that individual and their travel patterns and behaviors becomes really important. The great news is there's tons of data out there to be able to suck that in and identify who those users are, whether it be real-time data in the searches that they're doing, or whether it be data that's accumulated over time for that traveler profile. And so a lot of companies like ourselves, we gather data on travelers and build profiles so we understand what their purchasing behaviors and intents tend to be, so you can do more targeted campaigns to try and reach those types of users. But I don't think it's dramatically different than how you would approach it as a hotelier.
Great, thanks, Chris. Ed, this one's for you. And Julie wants to know, what are some ideas to help get me started in creating content that's really inspirational?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So, I mean, you can always start with just really thinking through what are the whys that people would travel to where you are, and how would people want to learn that? So it's not about your property, it's about the experiences. And people love checklists, so 8 great things to do in our town, and the different types of trips that may exist when you travel. So I always tell people, like, going to Vegas, there's like 14 different versions of a Vegas trip depending on who you're traveling with. These are good places to start. The other is so Ellis talked about how you're collecting, operational feedback and things like that, and that's an opportunity for, that type of proof. The other thing is start asking people, what was the best part of your trip with us? And that will inspire you to understand how people are experiencing your property and the things around your property, and that can be the springboard for more content creation. And then obviously collecting content from your guests.
Excellent. Thanks, Ed. Alice, this one is for you. How is messaging, and this comes from Matthew, how is messaging used to create service recovery opportunities on the property?
Well, thank you, Matthew. Having just acquired Checkmate over at TrustYou back in July, we've taken a pretty deep soiree into the messaging space and have been learning quite a bit over the last few months and during our due diligence and getting into it. You know, when you talk about creating service recovery opportunities, or more importantly, like, let's just start talking about creating an open line of communication with your guests when they get on property. You know, a lot of this conversation today has revolved around mobile and the mobile device, and, you know, Charlie was mentioning how more people are spending more time doing this than they are doing this. So from a messaging perspective, you know, if that's the way your travelers want to communicate, then that's the way you need to begin communicating with them, whether that be through SMS, whether that be through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or WeChat or Line, depending on what part of the world you're in. Specifically to service recovery, if you give travelers and guests an opportunity or an outlet to express concerns specific related to service or something bad that may have happened at a property, you're giving them an outlet to give you at the hotel an opportunity to correct that, so that when they leave, they're leaving with a more positive experience. So I think messaging just really, from a real-time engagement perspective, opens up the line of communication and just gets the conversation started.
Great, thanks, Ellis. And Charlie, this question's for you. It's a doozy. So we know we have to work with the OTAs in some regard. How do you go about balancing that, direct bookings versus OTAs?
First of all, I would say I'm a big fan of OTAs and all the bookings that OTAs bring when they're incremental. So the starting point is you absolutely have to work with OTAs, and you should want to work with OTAs because they can be a fabulous channel for bringing incremental guests. However, one of the challenges with the hotel OTA relationship has been, in the last few years, they've started pulling guests who were going to book with you anyway and getting them to switch. A key reason for that switch is this misconception and that it's cheaper to book via OTAs, right? They've spent billions on advertising and all those sort of crossed out prices that they put on their website that suggest it's more expensive on the hotel. So addressing that with bringing price transparency is a key thing, but also contracting and in the way that you contract with OTAs. And different hotels get very different terms. One of my suggestions and one of the reads I look at every single week is Duff on hospitality. If you were to Google DUFF on hospitality, you'll see it's a great, it's a lawyer who just purely works for hotels and helps them get the right agreements with OTAs. And there are loads of tips and tricks that they give out on what should you have in your contract. Should you allow them to bid on your brand terms? What's the right way of having a really positive relationship? Because that's what we want with them, and that's what they want with us, right? So I think it's a careful balance. It's kind of got a little perhaps off balance in the last few years, but right. It feels like hotels are bringing it back to the right place.
Excellent. And this is a question I'm going to ask each of you, if you could maybe keep, it's a big question, if you could try and keep your response to maybe 30 seconds. But Steve from the audience wants to know, so you each represent components within these phases of the journey. How can a hotel think about budgeting for each of these phases? Is there a place, do I budget for them equally? Do I spend more time on one phase versus another phase? So Ellis, let's start with you.
Fantastic. Start with our products. We have a, as it relates specifically to TrustYou, and listen, I'm a huge fan of every company that's represented here on this panel, and they all do amazing things. At TrustYou, we do guest feedback, right? We are the world's largest guest feedback platform, analyzing content on over 500,000 different hotels across the globe, and we have partners like Google and Kayak and Skyscanner and WeGo, and we are impacting and validating a lot of travel booking decisions across the globe. Now, what does this mean? From a budgeting or tech stack perspective as it relates to a hotel, we truly believe at TrustU that guest feedback can sit at the foundation of any technology stack because we plug in across all the different main components. We plug into PMS, we plug into CRS, we plug into CRM, and all of that can be funneled from guest feedback, creating guest profiles, and so on and so forth. So the post-stay survey is an old staple within the hospitality and travel industry. You know, from a budgeting perspective, dollar-wise, don't know if I could give you a number there, but you know, I think we've made the line item pretty consistently in most large hotel groups and independent brands across the world, working with about 16,000 hotels at this point.
Great. Thanks, Ellis. Ed, same question.
Sure. So first of all, it's important to make sure that you really take a look at your strategy first. I talk to hotels about this a lot, especially ones that start to show oversensitivity to OTAs. If you understand your strategy and you understand what you're going to be allowed to do by your owners, you can easily define your path forward with all the different technologies out there, and also know that they all interconnect. Anyone who's been in this industry long enough knows you don't do single partnerships. We all have to connect with each other and create value out of that. So what I mean when I say look at your overall strategy, if your owners are going to let you put a substantial investment in greatly decreasing how much business you get from outside sources, not just OTAs, traditional wholesalers, things like that, then you should look at a serious investment in your full marketing stack. And obviously, believe it or not, I think the first place you start in your marketing stack is going to be your website. And putting really good design, hiring the right people that know how to A/B test and know how to move through that process. The second purchase is your booking engine. Because once you have a good site that's making people want to make the decision, you then need to bring in the booking engine. Then you go to the other products you see here. And I think that's important. And you could start with any of them, get to the point that they're giving you the ROI that they all will give you, use that ROI to then invest in the next one. Get your feet under you on that one, use the ROI to get to the next one. There is no one way to do it right once you have the fundamentals of a very good website and a very good booking experience. Because that's where Expedia, that's where Airbnb, and it's also where the brands are killing independent hotels is they're investing a ton of money in the user experience. So get that right, and then all the rest of these will add to that. But if you start hobbling on pieces and components to a very bad conversion engine, you're not going to get the ROI.
Yeah, right on. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly a couple things. The first thing I would add, first of all, totally agree with Ed on the need for the website to be awesome. And then, back to the point Ellis has been making around the mobile device, make sure it's awesome on all devices. Certainly, that's got to be the start, and then certainly the booking engine. One of the questions I always ask hoteliers when they think about making ROI decisions on their investments is, what's a direct booking worth to you? How much more valuable is a customer that comes directly to your website versus one that might come through an OTA, etc.? And when you start to understand the economics behind the importance of that direct booking, then you can start making investment decisions to say, I'm willing to spend this much more to go capture this many more direct bookings, and then certainly in the back end, bringing those people back into your hotel. So I think it's really important to start up front and figure out what's the value of a direct booking for you. And then finally, certainly all of us have got great solutions that we think really serve hoteliers, or we wouldn't be doing what we do. I think there are various pricing models out there that hoteliers can go look at. You don't have to have lots of marketing dollars to go do marketing. There are nuances to how pricing models work with digital marketing companies, and so I would explore those and make sure you understand the various opportunities for you. And especially in the independent and boutique space where we know marketing budgets are limited and small, certainly we as a company look for solutions that fulfill those constraints. And make sure that we're setting up our pricing models to allow customers to use technology and services that they might not otherwise be able to use. That certainly, as Ed was talking about, all of the large flags and chains and brands will use. So explore different pricing models, because there's going to be some out there that are going to be favorable for the independents and boutiques especially.
Thanks, Chris. And Charlie, I know direct booking ROI is directly in your wheelhouse, pun intended. So you're the
yeah. So
anchor.
I agree with the sense that starting with your own website, then I'd probably put retargeting next. If you've got good conversion, retargeting is probably the best next thing, and then finally I'd say acquisition. But under just the first bit, there's a huge amount to get done. And I think the reason why it's a challenging question is different hotels are at different stages. So if I were you, go and find a technology partner you work with today, and ask them to go and look through the data they've got, right? What are 4 or 5 hotels like me in cities like mine? What's the conversion rate on their website? If our conversion rate's at 3%, should I be delighted or should I be upset? So level set, right? Is our website actually pretty good, or is our website pretty awful? Do that first, get your website to a good place, and then worry about the rest.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everybody. That was a very active first half, so really appreciate your participation. And thank you, audience. You guys are great. So what we just talked about is actually a perfect segue to what's coming up next, which is about a high-performing website and all about booking engines and direct booking. So we're going to take about 30 seconds while we tee up the next set of presentations and the next speakers, and then we'll start on the second half.